Well, I knew that it was inevitable that at some point you guys were gonna stick me with a sidearm. And this week, with it getting 37% of the vote, we're using Cryosthesia 77K. It's not a weapon that I have a ton of experience in using, and it's not a weapon class that I've really ever been able to cozy up to. There have been a few over the years that have landed better for me than others, but historically, sidearms kinda just aren't my thing. So, we'll see how it goes. Cryosthesia is a Stasis exotic sidearm firing at 260 rounds per minute with 13 rounds in the magazine. And as far as its stat line is concerned, it is pretty solid. Strong range, good stability, maybe a little bit light in handling. Reload speed's decent at 46. Great aim assist sitting at 93, respectable airborne effectiveness. And the recoil direction's not too shabby, coming in at a 92. And to save us the trouble of going through the perk descriptions word for word, get a kill, hold reload, swap to your freezy bullet. This shot does have about a half-second charge time. If it directly hits an enemy, they will be frozen. On a near miss, it applies slow stacks. And with the catalyst, if you shatter a frozen target, your magazine will instantly be refilled. For the weapon's damage profile, we're seeing 64 on a crit and 41 on a body shot, with both being rounded up from slightly lesser values. This is going to put our optimal time to kill at 0.7 seconds with 3 crits and 1 body shot versus any resilience tier. You can hit a suboptimal time to kill of 0.93 seconds with 2 crits and 3 body shots versus tier 8 or higher, while only needing 1 crit and 4 body shots versus tier 7 or lower. For a pure body shot time to kill, you can down Guardians at any resilience tier in 1.17 seconds with 6 shots landed. And Cryosthesia's physical range maxes out at 18 meters. Past that point, damage fall off begins to occur. For the LN2 shot, swapping over to it after a kill will take about 1.73 seconds. It does have that half-second charge time, and once you freeze an enemy, they will remain frozen for about half a second. On a near miss, and it doesn't have to be extremely near, it does have a working radius of about 6 meters, the shot will apply 40 slow stacks for about 1.5 seconds. Directly freezing a target will open him up for a quick shatter, or if you can get to your offhand weapon fast enough, and it packs enough punch to break the enemy, you could go that route as well. But because of the damage reduction versus frozen targets, if you're trying to finish them off with Cryosthesia itself, the enemy will unfreeze before the final blow is dealt, giving them some time to react. Getting into the 5 games though, I'm going to be heading in on my Shadebinder to get a little more stasis synergy out of Cryosthesia. For my exotic armor piece, I'm going to be running the Osmiomancy gloves for double the freezy fun with my cold snap grenades. And for my offhand weapon, since I don't trust myself with Cryosthesia one bit, I'm taking in a weapon that I trust very much, the Battler. If things just aren't going well with the exotic sidearm, I want something at the ready that I can at least attempt to salvage a match with. First game was on Exodus Blue, and it left me wondering, why have I not been using Cryosthesia? And I was careful not to really force the issue with it, but I mean, whenever I asked it to do its job, it went to work. Walked out of this one with a pretty easy win, a 2.56 efficiency rating, 23 total defeats with Cryosthesia chipping in on 12 of them. The next match on Distant Shore though was kind of a different story. And while it might not be the best map for Cryosthesia, in general I was having a hard time getting it going. And I knew that was a distinct possibility heading into these matches, and that's why I brought along the Battler. It basically carried me to a 3.29 efficiency with 23 defeats, and while my team did end up losing by 5 points, when looking at the final scoreboard, it could have been worse. Match 3 on Pacifica was definitely the most frustrating game of the set. My team was short-handed the entire match, and it felt like at every turn you were just getting swarmed by the enemy. So when trying to play within Cryosthesia's optimal range, I felt like I was always having to fight off multiple Guardians at the same time, which doesn't bode well for someone who has a hard enough time winning 1v1s. So all in all, kind of a rough match, but on to the next one. Dissonance, and this one did go much better. My team won pretty handedly and I was quite happy with my personal performance, but here again, I just had a tough time outright downing enemy players with Cryosthesia. I was able to sneak in a few here and there, but once again it was Battler and my subclass kit putting in the majority of the work. Last match we headed to Cirrus Plaza and this was my best game of the set. And I think that's largely due to the fact that it did have some very solid teammates, but I think the higher volume of shorter and more narrow sightlines did play into Cryosthesia's favor. I definitely was a lot more comfortable with it here than on the longer and more open maps. Of course, with it being a sidearm, I suppose that makes sense. Still, I wasn't necessarily piling up the defeats with it, but I was a bit more confident when using it. Overall, went 3-2 for the 5 games. I held an overall efficiency average of 3.39, 22 average defeats across the 5 matches, with Cryosthesia there chipping in on about a third of those. For some general thoughts on the weapon, I do think this gun is quite good, but I don't think I'm the right player to really unlock its full capabilities. There is some big play potential in this little sidearm, and you can get on quite a roll freezing and downing targets one after another. Its physical range does let it stretch out a bit further than most other sidearms. and that 0.7 second optimal time to kill is competitive for those who can keep the crosshairs on target, which is more or less where I tend to falter with sidearms in general. I've always been someone who is a bit more comfortable engaging from longer distances because all you gotta do is make those little micro adjustments to stay on target. The closer a target is, the more exaggerated that adjustment may need to be. And while I'm usually pretty good with a quick flick on a shotgun, when it comes to tracking a target and landing multiple shots on him at close range, not so much. Sometimes I'm able to pull it off, normally with more spammy sidearms that have a bit quicker fire rate, but with Cryosthesia being a 260, it does ask for some precision to hit a respectable close range kill speed. And not being able to reliably accomplish that is one of my inherent weaknesses as a PvP player. So I did tend to struggle when trying to use it as my primary weapon. As an offhand weapon though, when I had time to react to an enemy closing in on me and I could properly position myself, it did work out pretty well. And I really appreciated the fact that if I did secure a kill, that LN2 burst was there to stop any secondary enemies in their tracks. For someone with not stellar reaction speeds, being able to hit the pause button on the enemy really helped me out in a lot of situations. And since I was playing on Shadebinder with Ice Flare bolts, freezing and shattering a target sends out a cold snap, potentially putting the brakes on another enemy player. So like I said earlier, when Cryosthesia gets rolling, there is a lot of potential packed in. And I do think I'm going to be playing around with this sidearm a bit more going forward. I like what this weapon can do, I just need to get myself to the point where I can consistently secure kills with it and fully realize what it brings to the table. But that is going to do it for this one. As always, the poll for next week's 5 games video will be going up on Friday. Be sure to swing by the channel's community tab if you'd like to cast your vote. With that though, Guardians, have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.